Explorations. Probing global diversification. We travel the world so you don't have to.
Remember how you sang with resonating thrill. Remember all the peace.
Your books are really well known. What possessed you to write on this subject matter in the first place?
Well, I was a marriage counselor back 25 years ago, and at the time, what I was seeing is that the techniques that we were being taught, which was to sort of be gender neutral, wasn't really working. As I was helping men be expressive of their feelings, often women then felt more responsible, like they were the mother, and often they felt greater hesitation because they might upset him. The men were becoming too emotional. So I said, really, I think we men and women are different. And as I started understanding some of the differences that I observed and validating those differences, I had great success as a counselor. So it all started just recognizing, helping women understand men, the way men think and feel, which is often a puzzle for women, and helping men understand the way women are thinking and feeling, which is often a puzzle. And when you solve that puzzle, relationship tension sometimes goes way down.
So what kinds of things did you find then, the differences that help bring the two sides together?
Well, some really simple things were the most profound, and it's not like they're the answer to all problems, but one was you'd hear from women a lot, which is their biggest complaint was often that men don't listen. And it wasn't men's biggest complaint by far. And not that men would agree that women were great listeners either, but it just wasn't their complaint. So you have to look at why were women complaining about this so much when they would come and they're ready for a divorce or whatever. And it was the bottom line is that women, which gradually I began to explore and discover, and now have a little science to back it up, or at least help explain it, which is that the hormones that are produced when you're talking and you feel heard actually produce lower stress in women. And they don't necessarily lower stress in men. They might feel good, but if a man's not solving a problem when he's talking, his stress levels will go up. But often women are talking and they don't want to solve anything. They just want to talk and share, and that actually made them feel much better. I actually did, when I was starting to learn these things, just by observation, I did a test. And I practiced for quite a while. I stopped trying to fix women's problems and solve their problems and give another sort of a rational perspective on it, but instead would ask questions more like, well, tell me more about that. I want to understand that. Let's talk more about this and what happened then and how did it feel. And by asking more questions, my practice doubled. And I asked the women who were coming into my counseling practice till I had a waiting list, I said, why did you pick me as your therapist? And women were saying, my friends told me all about you, that you're a man who really cares. Now, the interesting thing is I always care. People, when they love their work, of course they care. But by asking more questions and giving less answers, it translated into a message that I really cared more. And that term, feeling cared for, feeling understood, is a major hormonal producer of a hormone called oxytocin. I didn't know that then, but now we have the understanding that when you talk about your feelings and somebody listens, oxytocin levels will increase. And for women particularly, oxytocin will lower stress. It literally lowers their cortisol levels. So I was teaching men how to listen to women without interrupting and trying to solve things. That would be one difference. Another big difference, if we just flip the tables, that help women understand their husbands, is that men don't often want to talk as a way of coping with stress, but sometimes they just want to disconnect from all their problems. They want to forget them. They don't want to talk about what happened today. I'd like to forget what happened. So women would complain and say, I asked him what happened. He said, how was his day? Good, fine, okay. But I know that something's bothering him. And, something could be bothering him. And the way a man often copes with that is by taking time to forget it and to relax, maybe by watching a football game or watching the news or working out or has a hobby, something where he doesn't have to feel responsible for anybody or anything. Then he can relax and let go. And women often saw this as a sign of, well, he doesn't love me. Why doesn't he want to talk to me? Why doesn't he want to talk about his day with me? He must not love me. He must not care about me. And that becomes another major source of stress. so I called that the cave. I said, quite often a man wants to come home, just go to his cave. And it's not about her at all. Don't take it personally. This is actually what he needs to cope with stress, just as sometimes she wants to talk about her day, and that's a way to connect for her to lower her stress.
Are there chemicals involved in both cases? You said the
Oh, big time. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about sex today, and the major hormone for men when it comes to sex, but as well as sex, but well-being. Energy, motivation, positive attitude, not depressed, all these sort of positive attributes of masculinity, the ability to delay gratification, all come from healthy testosterone levels. And, of course, libido is directly linked in there as well. And for women, sexual responsiveness, as well as their ability to experience well-being and keep stress levels low, is all directly related to this hormone oxytocin. Estrogen's also a key factor in there, because without estrogen, oxytocin doesn't lower her stress. But they've isolated it. It's oxytocin that's the hormone that lowers stress for women. So what we find is, now I have almost a scientific explanation to help women understand that when their husbands come home and he's like ignoring her, he's watching a football game, it's not like he's personally ignoring her. He's just doing what he needs to recover from stress, as I mentioned before. And if you measure his testosterone levels, when a man is engaged in sort of any recreational activity while relaxing his muscles, meaning he's not having to solve serious problems, but his brain is engaged solving problems, but they're not serious ones. So it's playful, it's games, it's hobbies, it's football, it's soccer, it's, these kind of things. It's hockey, of course. And when his brain is busy with looking at that, but he's relaxed, this actually rebuilds his testosterone more efficiently than anything else. He has to work hard using up his testosterone, doing serious problem solving. Then he comes back and relaxes by non-serious problem solving, so to speak. And somebody might say, well, watching a game, how's that problem solving? Well, you're constantly giving, you're saying, no, don't do this, go over here. Oh, how are they going to do this now? But it's all for fun. So that's how men rebuild testosterone. For women, they don't have to rebuild so much testosterone because they don't need that much testosterone. Your average woman, the average male has 30 to 50 times more testosterone than your average woman. There are some high testosterone women, but they're the 1%. They're 1% of women. They're not the majority for sure. And those women won't relate to a lot of the Mars-Venus ideas that I talk about, because they're going to relate more to the Mars because they just have more testosterone. So they run out of testosterone solving problems. They need to rebuild it. But what's important is for all women, they do have a hormonal cycle of estrogen, progesterone, oxytocin. These are all major factors. Regardless of what your genetic testosterone levels are, you still need oxytocin in order to cope effectively with stress. And one of the major producers of oxytocin is communication, is feeling seen and heard, talking about your experience of life, your feelings about life, while you're not trying to solve problems, just simply connecting. And that's called relationship-oriented conversation as opposed to goal-oriented problem-solving conversation. So, these things that are out there about women talk more than men, it's actually not true. In the workplace, on average, men talk a lot more than women. But once you're married and you're in a relationship after about a year, generally speaking, women talk a lot more than men do once you're in the relationship and you've got kids.
Is there something that a woman can do to help boost the testosterone in her spouse?
Yes, there's lots, okay? So the first is what I said, which was so critical. And I was doing a TV show on testosterone with a bunch of doctors the other day, and I said to them, they're wanting to give people testosterone injections and so forth, and I personally disagree with that. There's different camps. If you take a testosterone, you're actually taking a steroid. And if you're not addressing the problem, why aren't they making testosterone? And, I'll get into what inhibits the production of testosterone in a man. But first, let's look at how men rebuild testosterone. And while they're prescribing testosterone to men, I'm saying to these doctors, well, how do you make testosterone? What can I do to make testosterone? and they have no idea. They don't even have a clue. They're not taught that. They don't have that education, and very few people understand that. But you go into the weightlifter community, and these guys have it down to a science. Some of them use steroids, but the ones who don't, they have to be really on top of the situation. And what they know is the way you increase your testosterone levels is you challenge your muscles, and then you give them plenty of time for recovery. And the most powerful testosterone-producing exercise has to do with what's called intensity exercise, where you alternate intensity with relaxation. That in itself is a big testosterone releaser, which if you can empty out your testosterone and then experience recovery time of 2 days with not challenging your muscles hardly at all, you will rebuild your testosterone levels more powerfully than anything else. You'll rebuild your muscle mass more powerfully than anything else. You'll rebuild your mitochondria, which produces energy in your muscles more. So the key here is for our relationships to create permission and support and acceptance and having a positive attitude about a man's need for cave time. Your husband wants to go out with the guys. Hey, go out with the guys. You need to have time with your buddies. Anytime a guy is with other guys and there's no women around, testosterone levels go really, really high. Now, there is a problem with just of too high testosterone levels, just to point that out. We see this with the famous book, Lord of the Flies. You get boys without parental supervision, which is one dynamic, but also just boys without any female influence. Testosterone levels start to spike really, really high. And the danger that occurs when testosterone spikes really high is it converts into estrogen, and now you get testosterone suppression. So that's another aspect of it, which is just simply boosting your testosterone too high is not such a great thing either. It's having healthy levels of testosterone. And one is a man needs this cycle of action and rest. Now, let's say a guy goes to work and he really doesn't get paid well, or he doesn't feel he's being acknowledged or valued at work, and he doesn't really feel any good about himself as a result. How can you feel really excited about yourself and what you do when nobody seems to appreciate it or pay for it? So he works really hard, uses, up his muscles, exhausts himself, comes home and rests. He won't rebuild the testosterone. He'll actually begin to experience depression due to low testosterone. And we have to understand this, that for men, depression is always accompanied with high estrogen and low testosterone, high female hormone, low male hormone. So what a man has to do when he's working is feel successful. The message a man gets is that if he feels successful using up his testosterone, which happens when you're problem solving, then when you're relaxing in a context of you are a success, you did it, you won the race, you achieved, you accomplished, you climbed the mountain, you made the money, you walked the long distance, you got here, he's home and he's alive, that sense of you made it, that's the biggest testosterone producer there is for a man, because what that will do is, first of all, it will release testosterone and help empty him out. And then when he can sort of sit back in his easy chair and relax because he's done a good job, which women will often provide for a man if she feels he's done a good job, then he will rebuild his testosterone. Now, this doesn't mean men shouldn't participate in household activities, shouldn't get involved in the family. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying he needs his downtime, and it's like his big reward. It's almost like you get the image of a guy sitting back with his legs up, smoking his cigar, I'm on top of the world, That is a major testosterone rebuilder for a guy. It doesn't release his testosterone, but it rebuilds his testosterone so that now when he goes out, he has less stress in his life. So for men, the relationship between testosterone and cortisol, the stress hormone, is a very, very, the most powerful relationship of any two hormones for a man. Not for a woman. Actually, high testosterone will tend to increase cortisol for women, but for men, normal testosterone or high compared to a woman is what I meant. It is a major stress reducer for men. So in a relationship, if a woman, for example, was to be satisfied with her husband and appreciate what he does for her, that creates higher testosterone. But let's say she's out working all day long and she's exhausted and she's tired. He's been working all day long and he's exhausted and he's tired. and they come home and he wants to rest and she's busy doing all this stuff, it's really hard for her to feel appreciation for him. He'll say, I'm tired, when she says, why aren't you helping out? And she'll say, well, why are you tired? I did everything you did today, too. What gives you permission to be sitting on that couch and relaxing? And so whether she says that or not, she's thinking at the different degrees this sense of disapproval of a man's need to rebuild testosterone. She doesn't see it that way. She sees it as laziness. But this idea that he's lazy, just thinking that about your partner will drop his testosterone and inhibit the rebuilding of testosterone in his body. So it's really, the whole concept is creating a relationship where a man feels successful in making her happy. So how do you do this, women? You give him downtime, and you also practice something that many women think they shouldn't have to do. But women who learn how to do it are much happier women. And these are women who learn how to ask for help. They basically, honey, when you're out of the cave, when you got some time, would you help me? I've got a little list over here. And you got a little list, and you hand him the list, and he goes and does those things, and then you make a big deal out of, oh, thanks, that's such a burden off my shoulders. And lots of women, they'll be going, they want to throw up when I say this. They go, well, I'm doing all these things. Why should I have to ask? And, of course, now you're going to have a man with low testosterone, low libido, and want to divorce him. And you do get divorced because you got a negative attitude. Or you get the woman who goes, but why should I have to ask? If he loves me, I shouldn't do it. And so she gets her feelings hurt by it, and she gets confused about it. But you see, if the reason men work so hard in the workplace is you have a very clear job description, what's required of you, and you get paid for it. The personal life, men have never been, quote, required to do all these things. Our fathers didn't do them. Our previous generations didn't do them. We didn't see our fathers doing it, nor did we see anybody getting rewarded for it. So men think, let me go do the rough stuff, the hard stuff, get rewarded for it, and come home and make her happy. But it doesn't do it as much as it used to. So men's testosterone levels, that's one of the reasons they're so low. Men's testosterone levels is a huge crisis. Just doing a hard job, working really hard, and coming home and having a woman be grateful you're still alive is one of the biggest testosterone producers in the world. Sometimes my wife sees what I do. She'll travel with me, and she sees how hard I work, or she'll see me when I'm writing a book. And she just takes a deep breath, and she says, oh, my God, I'm sure glad I don't have your job. And I just feel so empowered by that. She truly appreciates the hard work I do. And she has a job. She works, too. But she sees what I do, and she recognizes, I'm glad I don't have to do that. But women are doing jobs that they don't like doing. My wife gets to do jobs she wants to do, she chooses to do. But if you have to do a job you don't like doing, that causes so much stress in a woman that she can't give that kind of acceptance and appreciation and love to a man. But what she can do is find balance. So that's why, to help him have more testosterone, she needs to take responsibility for her happiness and not make him a cause of her unhappiness. And that's learning about the other hormones called oxytocin. She has to do what I might call me time. Do things that make you happy and learn how to ask for support and ask him to do things to make you happy. And that's the ultimate solution for romance, which is say, hey, next weekend, these are 3 things I'd love to do. Would you pick one of those and take me? That's it. That's romance. You don't have to make the decision. You don't have to arrange it. You get to do what you want to do. Don't try to pick something he wants to do. That's not romantic. Romantic is when he's happy to do something because it makes you happy. And, these are big subjects. I know, trying to get through them really fast, it's easy to misinterpret some of these things, but they're workable solutions.
It's actually pretty straightforward. Then awareness is what's really important. Awareness of your partner.
Well, awareness and understanding what allows you to interpret them correctly. For example, let's say, I'm just taking one of the points. There's so many points, but this is a major testosterone one, which is how to rebuild testosterone. Let's say a guy's wanting to rest and relax after working hard, and his wife is looking at him like, why is he sitting there? He should be helping. Why is he ignoring me? And as soon as she has that big Y, which is men have the Y chromosome and women don't, and that's what gives rise to these higher testosterone levels in men and the needs that come along with those higher testosterone levels, You know, women love to have a guy who's got testosterone. He's willing to take action. He's the one who'll go outside when there's a leak in the roof and there's a storm or there's big winds that are happening or there's a dispute with the neighbors and there's lawyers or there's police action. The guy's going to go out there and take action if there's a dispute, if you got to return something, if you got to argue with some women, say push their husbands out there. You know, that's the testosterone guy. He's got all, you know, that's what testosterone helps him to do, is to do their sort of rough stuff, the tough stuff, the difficult stuff, the sacrifice stuff, the not pleasant stuff, the good cop, bad cop stuff. You know, this is you want a man for that, but then suddenly you get him home and you want him to be like a little girl or something. You know, this is where we got to, you know, realize men and women have differences, and not all men have to be that extreme that way, depending on what you're attracted to as a woman. But you have to realize with these guys, it's a whole new world today. Women have new needs. They don't know how to meet them. But feminizing men isn't the answer. What we want to do is learn how to ask for support, because when you can ask, then you're not complaining. The number one marriage killer, testosterone killer, is complaining, nagging. You'll hear this over and over. And women like, but he makes me nag. I said, nobody makes you nag. It's like learning how to communicate what you want in a way that works. This is a whole art. This is a new knowledge. And when we don't have that, men start to feel like nothing I do in my relationship makes my wife happy. And that just immediately, that belief on his side, in misinterpreting her, because he can make her happy. He just doesn't know the ways to do it. But if a man interprets a woman, I can't make her happy, his testosterone levels will start dropping. He won't be able to recover from the loss of testosterone at work. If a woman comes home and she misinterprets a man's behavior as he doesn't love me, he doesn't care about me, I can't get the help I need, I'm all alone here. Just that interpretation, that misinterpretation of this guy will cause her to inhibit the oxytocin production in her body. Her stress levels will go up. Her brain is filled with 8 times more blood flow, which activates her memories, and she acutely remembers every disappointment in the marriage. The longer they've been married, the more things there are to remember. And so she's in a negative, sour mood. She takes him for granted. She doesn't appreciate him. And so his testosterone levels crash. Her oxytocin levels crash as he loses motivation, loses interest, loses romantic interest, loses desire. And so, you know, you can point fingers or you can take responsibility either way you look at it. There's things I can do as a man to increase my testosterone, do nicer things for my wife, make her happier. She can do things to be happy herself, ask for support so he can help her to be happier. And now you've got a man who has a way to increase his testosterone. So that's a lot of ideas there, which is if we can correctly interpret our partner's behavior, half of the solution is there. And then based upon the correct interpretation, we can learn new strategies for providing better support for our partners.
What about aligning these levels when partners are getting ready for sex?
Okay, so why don't we'll move into sex now, because for men, a younger man, until his testosterone levels start dropping, it's usually not till 35 or 40 that a man's testosterone levels start significantly dropping. So he doesn't have that automatic, I want sex, I want sex, I want sex. So we have to look at age differences here. But for women to really enjoy sex, they need plenty of oxytocin. Oxytocin is produced in a variety of ways. And as mentioned, if she was to get a massage, a non-sexual massage increases her oxytocin levels, and being sexual releases her oxytocin and causes great pleasure and lowers her stress levels. But getting the massage is one thing that increases the oxytocin. So, and that's just one example. Anytime a woman feels she's in a personal situation where she can be herself, express herself, and there's no obligation to do something. She can just be. The biggest obstacle to oxytocin, which has been proven to be the hormone of arousal in women, is that women need plenty of oxytocin in order to experience arousal. And if women don't have plenty of oxytocin, they don't lubricate, they don't enjoy sex, and quite often they can't climax or they climax too soon. It can be one or the other. But the whole experience of increasing pleasure and getting into the experience of sex, it's much more challenging for women today than most men, because for women, our lives are so much faster. We're in a rush. We're in a hurry. We're filled with lots of sacrifice. I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to call so-and-so. I still have to do this. I have to check my email. That whole sense of I have to releases testosterone, but it doesn't rebuild oxytocin. It inhibits the increasing of oxytocin. So women, in a sense, dry up of oxytocin. And the ability to enjoy sex, to look forward to sex, to be responsive sexually, it takes longer. So we have something called foreplay, which is you don't get right to the intense sex part, but you kiss, you hold, you stroke, you touch, and if you're not in a hurry, then that creates oxytocin for women. Non-goal-oriented affection is a big oxytocin producer. When women are more stressed as they are today, I go beyond foreplay, and I say start with a foot massage. And even better than that is if you really know how to listen. It takes a while for men to learn how to listen without losing their testosterone. But because when women start getting emotional, men go, I don't know what to do. Whenever you feel like I don't know what to do, your testosterone levels drop. Estrogen levels increase. Your libido goes away. But the real secret is when a woman can share her feelings and feel heard, then her libido will dramatically go up. Second to that is a foot massage. Non-goal-oriented foot massage will definitely produce lots of oxytocin, and then you can start going up her legs and so forth, and the foreplay part starts. But we have to realize that generally speaking, women need a lot more time to get into enjoying sex. And this is challenging for men because, a man has a lot of testosterone when he anticipates he can give pleasure to a woman. So if he sort of starts making moves and he senses she's not experiencing any pleasure, part of him feels like, gee, this isn't working. And if you feel like it's not working, boom, your testosterone levels go down again. So it's like really understanding that when she's not in the mood, she's not rejecting you. A nice thing to say is, honey, you want to have sex? And she says, I don't know. Say, well, hey, let's talk about it. Why not? Or you could say, and once she starts talking, well, I still have to get this done. I got to do this. I got to do this. Then you say, well, is there a part of you that wants to have sex? And she says, well, yeah, there's a part of me, and that's all a man needs to get his erection back. Okay, so somebody wants me there.
Remember how you sang, remember how you sang with resonating.
Okay, so I guess, Kevin, just a little bit about your background and how you came to be involved in what you're doing right now.
I've got a background in exercise science from the University of New Brunswick, and I've always been very intrigued with how the human body functions and how important physical activity is to enhancing human health. And that really started my curiosity towards figuring out how the body functions, why it breaks down, and ultimately how to figure out how to enhance it naturally.
How do we address the situation where people have problems, erectile dysfunction and whatnot? Testosterone seems to be one of the key components, the level of testosterone. Maybe we can just talk a little bit about that. What kind of role you would have maybe in trying to treat somebody?
Yeah, testosterone is a very interesting topic because the physical side of health plays a huge role with naturally trying to improve somebody's testosterone. We have this misconception that testosterone should just naturally decrease as we age. And there's great literature out there to support the fact that, it does show a trend of reducing with age, but it's likely more related to lifestyle and the habits people engage in throughout their lives, like nutritional habits, their level of physical activity, even environmental factors. So from a perspective of an individual like myself who is able to help my clients improve their physical activity or guide them towards better nutritional choices, there's very specific things that I would encourage people to do if they were looking to naturally improve their testosterone levels. And the first one is really getting them to become more physically active. And becoming more physically active in general is going to help produce more testosterone in the body, The body just seems to respond very well to being physically active by naturally elevating its testosterone. And when you talk about physical activity, we really should differentiate between structured physical activity, like doing structured exercise, and also doing things like just being more active in your day, not sitting as much, taking the stairs, both of which are going to have very specific type of responses for how your body will increase or maintain its testosterone level. If you're doing things like sprint training, it's a great way. Doing really high intensity based exercise is a great way to provoke an increased response of testosterone, as well as strength training with heavy weights. That's always been very well documented out there with being able to produce elevated testosterone.
We were talking last week with John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus. He was suggesting that you can actually deplete your testosterone by having, like if you have really, really heavy exercise sessions. What's your view of that?
He would be correct. Anything in excess is going to be a detriment. And with exercise, if it's really high intensity, if it goes beyond typically around 45 minutes or so, what you will see is an indirect kind of reduction in testosterone. And by indirect, I mean it won't reduce your testosterone directly, but what it will do is it will increase your production of another competing hormone called cortisol, the stress hormone. So if you're increasing cortisol from too much exercise as far as duration, then what you'll do is you'll prevent the binding of testosterone within the cells, and that reduces its ability to do what it should. So it's not necessarily the intensity of exercise, it's more related to the duration. And that 40 to 45 minute mark is a really important threshold.
Are there any other things that play a role in the level of testosterone besides exercise?
Yeah, exercise is a crucial one. And as I mentioned, just being physically active and then doing things like heavy resistance training, doing sprint training are great ways to produce testosterone. And then they also really help to produce and maintain testosterone indirectly because you're more likely to maintain good body weight. Any type of increased body weight as far as fat tissue is going to reduce your likelihood of maintaining a healthy level of testosterone, especially for men who have a tendency to carry their body weight around their midsection. They're more likely to have a lower level of testosterone. Nutrition is also a huge thing when it comes to maintaining good testosterone. If you're eating a higher sugar diet or a lot of refined carbohydrates, then you're going to produce more insulin and insulin resistance, and then that is going to cause an effect of reducing testosterone as well. And nutrition can actually be a great way to naturally increase your testosterone. Probably three of the most important things, and some of which people would never even think of, I don't think. One is zinc. Zinc is very important for increasing your ability to produce testosterone. And the natural way to get that in is through eating very good quality meats, like grain or grass-fed free-range meats, not the grain-fed meats. And then also through shellfish, oysters, fantastic way to get zinc in. Vitamin D, which anyone who's ever heard me talk or any patient of mine knows, I'm a huge advocate of vitamin D. I remember 10 years ago doing shows like this, talking about vitamin D and other professionals on the panel being, nah, you don't need vitamin D, just stand in the sun. Now, every autoimmune disorder known to man is associated with vitamin D deficiency. And vitamin D is very important for producing and maintaining your testosterone levels. The other one is fat. Fat is very important to take in your diet. We've had this battle in North America against fat. We've singled out fat as the enemy, and it really did not deserve that title. And in fact, is very important for things like testosterone, because testosterone is a steroid type hormone that's made up of things like cholesterol. So you need to get things like saturated fat within your diet.
How important is testosterone levels in a man?
Well, it depends. If you want to have a man that has leaner muscle mass, has more energy, probably is able to concentrate better, sleeps better, and just overall has a better mood, then it's very important. If you're a type of man that you're looking for is lacking confidence, is more likely to have depression, lacks energy, has a low libido, and typically will end up putting on more weight as fat, then try to find one with low testosterone. The unfortunate thing is there's a lot of those men that are running around out there in abundance. They have low testosterone. They're not able to achieve a life of health and happiness I don't think that they deserve, or that they could get if they started to engage in healthier lifestyle habits to boost their testosterone up. So it's a very important thing.
So what is a sign? What are one of the signs that a man can look for to know that his testosterone level might be dropping?
Well, the easy kind of way to understand that your testosterone is dropping, probably the most simplest way to identify is if you're carrying a few extra pounds around the midsection, you're lowering your testosterone.
Well,
I've been working on getting it down.
I see you.
So
Just abdominal fat is like the easiest way. If you've got somebody who's got type 2 diabetes or what they call metabolic syndrome, guaranteed they've got low testosterone, 100%.
assuming they didn't have diabetes or maybe some others, what is a way of naturally building up testosterone? Are there simple little exercises to bring up the testosterone level?
Yeah, the best form of exercise to bring it up would be things like heavy resistance training. So with strength training, typically if you perform that in the morning, you're going to get the best results because testosterone does fluctuate throughout the day. That's why it's also difficult when we try to test these things medically, that, it depends on the time of day you go and get the test. So you really got to be somewhat careful about that. But strength training with heavy weights, and then also doing sprint work is fantastic for producing a spike in testosterone. Engaging in other forms of physical activity like sex, is a great way. And even thinking about sex or even watching sex.
Oh.
Like if you just watch porn, you're going to increase your level of testosterone. So all of these things are great little ways to try to naturally produce a very vital hormone.
Are you saying that if I were to watch porn, my testosterone level would raise?
Not as much as a man.
Okay.
The research doesn't show the same results for females as they do with men. But with men, yeah, if men, there's been some great, publications that if a man talks to an attractive woman, he'll have an elevated level of testosterone, sometimes as high as 30%. And it doesn't matter if the woman is engaged in a flirtatious or any type of, affection towards the guy. It's just merely talking. We're programmed for it. And there's even some great literature out there. And I'm sure, John Gray was talking about some of this where if you're around a woman who's ovulating, there's smells that you can your brain will pick up that you're not aware of, that are actually provoking an increase in response to hormones in your body. It's actually quite amazing.
So is this why prettier ladies are chosen to work in the offices full of men?
Wow.
Interesting.
That's a dangerous question.
That's wonderful if it helps to keep the stress level, because testosterone keeps stress levels down in a man, doesn't? How does testosterone work in a man?
Well, testosterone works in a number of different ways. It helps to reduce stress indirectly. It's not something that if you automatically take testosterone, you're not going to have a stressful life. But it does help you withstand some of the physical stress that you would endure throughout your daily activities, and it will help you reduce some of the negative physical and psychological effects that stress from high cortisol could have in your body as well.
Say you have a situation where contact with a woman raises your testosterone levels. How do they stay up there for a while? Do they drop off at, say, once the contact is over? How does that work?
Yeah, it is transient. It does spike, and then it starts to dissipate, starts to go down. And if you're in contact with an attractive lady and your testosterone does spike, it's not like you could go to the gym right away and train and you're going to have an anabolic effect, like a muscle building effect. But a lot of these things, as far as their ability to produce a spike in testosterone, if you do them enough, it's going to keep your level of testosterone higher on an overall basis, and you're going to experience some of the benefits.
Remember all the love, remember all the love that filled your day.
We've spoken with some other people about the different elements that play a role in one's ability to have good sex, particularly from the male point of view. And it seems that testosterone seems to be the key here. How, I guess, because we're focusing here on acupuncture, can you actually alter a person's testosterone by acupuncture?
Yes, and we do acupuncture for what we call male sexual dysfunction. And from Chinese point of view, from the Western point of view, might just be pretty much one criteria and they base it. But also remember one thing, it's not just low testosterone level that can lead to problems with sexual function. It can be diabetes, it can be cardiovascular disease, it can be vascular disease, which is in the blood vessels. You can have some scarring in the penis itself that impedes the circulation of blood. So there are a number of other issues besides testosterone as per se that can lead to sexual dysfunction. So besides, for example, failing to maintain an erection, you can actually maintain an erection, but when it comes down to the point of having an orgasm, you have what they call a retroorgasm. Instead of actually ejaculating, everything gets sucked back into the bladder itself, and that's primarily an issue with people that have diabetes and have nerve damage. So really, instead of having everything done in a certain sequence, there is a misfiring. The nerves do not read properly the ejaculation process. So there are a number of things that really have to be looked at. From Chinese point of view, primarily, there are 3 or 4 different issues that could lead to a male sexual dysfunction. Also, another thing that Chinese medicine puts big emphasis that unless you're in tip-top shape, you should really watch how often you have intercourse, because the Chinese view is that every time you ejaculate, you deplete yourself of the core energy in your body, which takes quite some time to rebuild. So they actually have a chart, and this also, again, has to be interpreted quite loosely. You can't take it literally to say, I have to do it according to what the number of that the Chinese medicine prescribes to me. But for example, once you reach into the age of 60, Chinese view that you should have sex as long as you're in top physical condition once a week, no more than that. Now again, it has to be interpreted loosely. So there are a number also reasons behind why you can actually end up with this male sexual problem. Overdoing it, over being sexually active can lead to a libido issue. Then, as I said, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, so on and so on. But from Chinese point of view, primarily what you have that drives your essence, your core energy, are 2 things. It's what we call the pre-heaven chi, or from the Western point of view, would be your genetical makeup that you inherited from your parents, and that cannot be changed, obviously. And it's what we call a post-heaven chi, or the energy that you acquire from the food, the air, and the way you live your life every day. So those are 2 things that come into play for your core energy. That gives you also another thing besides being healthy. It's a good libido there. So the approach with acupuncture is first to identify what exactly you lack. Do you lack a kidney yin energy? you lack a kidney yang energy, which one being the cold part, one being the hot part. Is it both of them at the same time? Do you also having a number of other symptoms, like for example, dampness in your bladder? Do you have problems with primarily with your prostate? You have dribbling urination. You're running a bit of a low-grade fever at times. So you always have to address everything at once, including the whole body, not just the libido. So if somebody comes in for a consultation, for example, for lack of sexual drive, for erection, so on and so on, you do not look just at the libido itself. You have to look at the whole human body. How is his eating? How is his energy level? How is his rest? How is his stress level? Stress level, again, is very detrimental when it comes down to this. There are a number of Western medications that you treat somebody for depression that can trigger sexual issues. So those are all things that have to be eliminated or addressed in order to be able to really make a proper diagnosis and take it from there. Back to how well acupuncture works in dealing with these issues, I would say probably about 80 to 90% of the people respond quite well to it. If usually acupuncture does not yield the proper desired outcome, you can always add herbs to the prescription at the same time. Sometimes you might just use herbs alone. Every patient is its own entity. However, primarily, as I said, acupuncture, what you try to do is rebuild the kidney energy. So from Chinese point of view, whatever is going on with your male sexual organ or the female sexual organ, for that matter of fact, it's a problem with kidney energy. By rebuilding the kidney energy, you should get a better outcome. Another thing I can suggest, if somebody is interested, dietotherapy is very important when it comes down to health and disease from Chinese point of view. So a long-standing cooking recipe that you can use to help your libido as a man, it's shrimp. Shrimp quickly sautéed with ginger and garlic. They're very, very good for that. Wow. Another thing that's very, very good for that is mussels. And especially mussels, again, sautéed with black beans and rice wine. It's very good, especially also for women that have problems with their cycle. So if you have an irregular cycle from Chinese point of view, Chinese view that you have too much cold in your uterus. So by having too much cold in the uterus, having cycles which are not at times properly spaced out, you have a problem conceiving. So in order to be able to conceive, you should have regular menses. Regular menses can be achieved by stir-frying mussels with black beans and rice wine and eating it 2-3 times a week. And as I said, for men's libido, shrimp with ginger and garlic is very, very good for that. And again, you can always add herbs to it. However, the thing that I have become in time quite displeased with the way Chinese herbs and herbs are pretty much dispensed here in the West. People come across a certain herb and they like to build all this hype around it, and all of a sudden overnight becomes a panacea for everything and everything. People start taking it. For it to give you an example, ginseng is a very potent herb. However, in China it's very sparsely used, and you only use it when you really need it, and you do not take it forever, because ginseng being a warming herb, you can very easily go over the edge and throw you off balance again. So again, you do not take ginseng for months at end. You might be taking ginseng for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month at the most. Then you have to be reassessed by the Chinese doctor, and then you decide if you still need it. So you can't take a herb forever, because anything that's good enough for the beginning, if you continuously take it, it will throw you off the balance. So this is one thing where you have to be able to have a good relations with your doctor. He knows what he's doing with the herbs, and he prescribes them accordingly. You can't just read an article in the newspaper or see a commercial on TV and buy 1 pound of ginseng and keep on taking it. You'll end up with blood pressure and a stroke, knock on wood, because it's a way too strong of a herb.
I have a bit of a question here. How would
Sure.
you, so if someone were to go in to see you and say, well, I'm having a problem with my libido, with my testosterone, what would be the first things you would look for, and how would you advise them?
Well, first of all, they would have to fill out the medical questionnaire, which are usually about 6 pages worth of questions. Most patients complain that because it's so lengthy. But remember, Chinese medicine can only relies really on tongue diagnosis, pulse diagnosis, and symptomology. So from there on, you have to take the pulse of the patient, you have to take a look at his tongue, ask a ton of questions about what medications he's been on, what his diet is like, what his stress level is like, and from there on, you decide on a plan of treatment. Is it going to be acupuncture? Is it going to be acupuncture and herbs? And as the treatment progresses, usually the acupuncture prescription or the herbal prescription will change accordingly. So it's quite different, for example, than the Western methodology of prescribing medication. Here's your high blood pressure medication. This is what you're staying on for the next 30 months. This is not happening with Chinese medicine. As a rule, at the beginning of the treatment for any type of a disease, the prescription is a certain way. The middle of it will change again. And by the end of the disease cycle, it will change again. And it's usually followed by more herbs to tonify the immune system and so on and so on. So recurrence becomes more unlikely.
So, how long would a person have to be on a prescription?
Regimen or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so every patient is different, but as a rule, when it comes down to acupuncture, you're looking probably at the minimum 10 to 12 treatments. There are some patients that will notice a difference between after 2 to 3 treatments of acupuncture on the libido and the way they function sexually. Sometimes it takes up to 12 treatments. Every patient is different, and you cannot really assess that until you start doing the treatments and see what the feedback is from the patient itself. So again, for example, if somebody comes in and he is really depleted and you start doing the treatment, another thing that you have to stress to the patient, even though you feel better, I don't want you to jump back into the having sex every day and having a great time. You have to build that energy again internally. Once you get well, then you can start doing it. So it's very important, and this is what you find. It's the patient has to be a bit patient, and just because you feel better within 2 treatments, that doesn't mean you're healed. It's just like you're taking antibiotics, for example, for a chest infection. You feel better after 2 or 3 doses, but you still got to do your 7 doses worth of pills in order to finish with the cycle. So it's the same thing with Chinese medicine. Patient it's a virtue when it comes down to treating with Chinese medicine.
Does it always work, or are there times when this approach doesn't work?
No, there are times when it doesn't work, and there are a number of factors that comes into play. Sometimes, for example, the patient diabetes, the damage to the nerves might be so extensive that it's very unlikely that you can reverse it. Sometimes the patient comes in with really very, very high expectations that cannot be delivered by Chinese medicine. So yes, we can do acupuncture, and let's see, from not having any erection at all, you might be able to reach erection 1 or 2 times a week. Probably he's coming in with the expectation that he's going to be able to do it every day. So again, it's a bit of a balance. But again, like anything else, nothing is foolproof 100% of the time. So another thing I like to tell my patients, and the unfortunate thing is you go to the internet and you read all this hype about I'm so and so and I can in one treatment cure everything you have. If anybody, and you walk into anybody's office and he'll promise you 100% guarantee, turn around and walk out, because nobody can ever tell you I'll guarantee it 100%. I've been practicing this for 7 years, and I treated everything, and you can never guarantee anything.
So would you say that acupuncture can help is a natural approach to raising testosterone levels in a man?
Yes, definitely. And the best way to go about that, it's obviously get the blood work done, have the testosterone level measured, have your 12 treatments of acupuncture, return to your family physician and ask him to send you for another blood work and see what the numbers are.
Remember all the peace when